So, in the break, we were also talking about your self-professed love for F. Scott Fitzgerald and Ernest Hemingway, and I understand there was a quote. We want to emphasize this is Ernest Hemingway's quote.
I'm still kind of gonna censor it just in case.
We're gonna fix it.
But yeah, it's just like there's this one Hemingway quote that like he said that for you to write one good page, you had to write 99 pages of crap. And I just feel like that's very true. Like maybe not 99 to one, but I don't know. Sometimes like I just sit down and I write something. I'm like, this is the stupidest stuff I've ever written in my life. And then like next thing I know, I'm writing this other like really good thing.
You're just like, wow, how did I get
Yeah,
here?
and I don't know. Like maybe that is true. Like you just have like bad stuff like stuck in your head that you need to get out before like you actually get to the good stuff.
Mm-hmm. Very true. Um, so, is this? I understand you're also working on a novel right now.
I am, and my novel is in Spanish, which is why I didn't like read an excerpt from it. Um, but yeah, with it, I'm trying to do what I was telling you before about like making like a Dominican novel, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily like fully fledged, like Dominican, but like at least that has something in it. It is set in Santo Domingo, and it's just like just to like add something Dominican to like the list of like Latin American authors we have.
Very nice. So, developing a little bit of taste for it. So, can you tell us a little bit about what this novel will be about? Where you plan to go with it from here?
It's basically like a study of how like why relationships don't work, and it's mostly about um, like how relationships like end for no like real reason. Like it just kind of doesn't work and it stops happening all of a sudden from one day to the next. And it's kind of also like a character study between like this girl and this guy, and like the guy is like stuck in the past and the girl is too much in the future, and like none of them are in the present. And I don't know, like it's narrated like in first person so that they can't make excuses for themselves when any situation is happening. And basically, like the reader gets to decide which of the two like was at fault, or if none of them had like did anything wrong, or if both of them did everything wrong. Like I don't know, I think it would be interesting to see like where you as a person fit when you're reading the novel.
So, while you're writing this, do you have an idea of who's right and who's wrong? Or these are just like sketches of people and you can really project your own impressions onto them?
Well, the way that this started was that when I was like 16 or maybe 17, who knows, I started writing this piece about, like, I wanted to know how it felt like for a guy to not pay attention to me. That was, like, the way for me to, like I guess, like, come to, like, an understanding with it. And I was just because I was like, I don't think that people necessarily want to be, like, mean to you or, like, they want to not talk to you kind of thing.
Right.
But like, what is it like that goes through someone's head when they're having a conversation with you? And so the first chapter like starts from the guy's point of view, and it just like it seems like the guy is really aloof and like he wants to make a better job at what he's doing in this conversation than he is, but it doesn't really work out. And like the girl kind of like originally like it didn't end that way. Like the girl actually like gave him her number and like whatever. And then I rewrote it when I was a bit older, and I was like, nah, this guy's a
This
jerk.
wouldn't actually happen.
And like I just like she just like leaves, and like they find each other again and stuff, and like obviously because you kind of put things of yourself into your characters, like I would potentially side with the girl, but then like the guy kind of wrote himself, and I like based it a lot on my friends and like previous boyfriends and stuff like that. And like I don't know, I talk a lot with my guy friends about how they feel about certain things and why guys do the things that they do. And he just turned out to be like a very funny character, and he's like more likable than she is. And that's kind of surprising because I thought that it was going to be the other way around because I'm writing it. But at the same time, like you feel bad for both of them in one way or another. So I wouldn't know like with whom I would side at this point.
Very interesting. On my last show, I talked to someone who said he had more. He felt it was easier for him to write from a female perspective because he was brought up with a lot of women in his life. Like he didn't have too many male figures around. So you think just from like talking with guys, do you talk about like projecting, like building this character with them, or you just like pay
I
attention to
kind of
them.
just ask them questions, and then they're like, well, if it ever comes up in a novel, like, I warned you. But the truth is, like, I guess that also rings true for me because I did grow up, like, surrounded by mostly men. Like, there are, like, obviously, like, my mom is around, my aunt is around, my grandmas are around. But, like, I was an only child for 8 years, and, like, I hung out most with, like, my, like, guy cousins. And, like, I don't know, like, I feel like that created this whole thing where, like, I'm usually more at ease with my guy friends than I am with my girlfriends. And that could have had something to do with it. I don't know.
It's
But
very
still, like, it's just interesting how he turned out to be. Like, I feel like right now he has, like, it's easier for me to write the chapters that are from the girl's point of view just because I know better, like, the things that girls like and do. Whereas, like, with the guy, I kind of don't necessarily know, like, what he wants to do with his life or what he does for fun and stuff
right.
like that. But, like, whenever I do get down to writing something, like, it turns out better than the one I was writing for the girl.
It's really interesting. Um, and again, coming back to Fitzgerald and Hemingway, did you use anything from them in the construction of this novel?
Um, my novel, I would say, is more like postmodern than it is modern. But I take things from both Hemingway and Fitzgerald in the sense that Fitzgerald writes very nicely and very, like everything that he writes is just very poetic, even if it's, like, prose. Whereas Hemingway, like, really gets down to the point, and it's, like, very short chapters, and, a 6-word sentence is probably long for him, and stuff like that. But I guess that in a sense, like, I try to do both, because, like, in Spanish, sentences are longer no matter what. Like, it's just, like, the structure is different. Um, and I just, like, it's also very, like, narrative instead of, like, much dialogue, which I kind of got the inspiration from, like, Mario Benedetti, which is this, like, Uruguayan writer who died, like, while I was reading his first novel, because that's how things happen. And then I also kind of based it on the writing style of Gabriel Garcia Marquez, who also died while I was reading one of his novels. So that's just how things happen in my life. Like, people
If I
die.
ever publish something, please don't read it.
Yeah, I'll try my best. But yeah, but, like, from Hemingway, like, my chapters are really short, as opposed to, like, these two authors that I mentioned, that their chapters aren't necessarily that short. Um, and from Fitzgerald, like, I try to make everything sound as beautiful as possible, just because I feel like that's something that, like, if I can do it, then I should try to do it.
Very aspirational. I
Right.
admire that.
Thank you.
But you said it's going to be more postmodern. Is this in, like, the fact that you're taking the two different perspectives and trying to present them as an overarching narrative, or?
Because of that, and also because it's written in, like, present tense.
Okay.
And also, like, I guess I play more with, like, the experience of the reader as he reads it, which is more of a postmodern thing, whereas, like, modernists kind of just wrote whatever, like, rang true or sounded pretty for, like, the public's enjoyment. Like, whereas mine is more like I'm offering you, like, some sort of reading experience that you haven't had before.
Very nice. And so, what exactly haven't I experienced before in here? Is it necessarily, like, the female perspective, or?
I don't know. I mean, how many books have you read in present tense?
Not too many, now that you mention it.
So, I mean, I guess I got at least a little something going for me. I don't know. And plus, it's in Spanish. I don't like that adds more to it. Also, like, it's really weird because I moved here because I wanted to write in English, and I prefer writing in English for, like, technical things. Like, if I were to write an article or something like that, I would prefer English because it's a more technical language. But I have slowly, like, fallen in love with, like, narrating stuffs in Spanish. Like, it just sounds better to me. And I feel like in English there are so many, like, authors that are trying to, like, make it out there and, like, write different things, whereas, like, the Spanish market isn't that intense, and I feel like it would be easier for me to find, like, a place or, like, a voice that sounds more like me at this point in history. So I don't know.
Very nice.
Maybe I'll be, like, in literary anthologies and stuff. Who knows? You heard it first.
We're going to call it right now. Gabby's going to be anthologized.
Anthologized.
But, so writing in a different language, this reminds me a lot of Vladimir Nabokov. um, he